My name is Rod Merning. I'm the director of Sea Shepherd Canada, and I'm here with the Martin Sheen, and we're about to embark on the virus hunter. And right now what's going on is that the federal government was taken to court by Alexandra Morton, and she won the case, and the case was all about putting diseased farmed fish into the ocean, into the west coast here from Atlantic, and they're diseased because they know they were diseased by testing them at first. So she took them to court and said, "This is wrong. This is your mandate as the Minister of Department of Fisheries and Oceans is to protect the west coast wild fisheries, and of course, putting diseased fish is not protecting the fish." So the judge, the BC Supreme Court judge, ruled in Alexandra Morton's favor, and that situation created the federal government into a problem, because they couldn't support the fish farms and support wild fisheries. So they decided a real sneaky, slimy way is not to test the fish. That's how they got away with this for the last 8-10 months. Is they're putting diseased fish in it, but they're not saying we're not testing them, so how do we know if they're diseased or not? So here is the quandary right now. This is Trudeau at his worst. He's lied to the public many times. This is another one of his many lies. He's not protecting the west coast fisheries. He's basically protecting the corporate fish farms.
Fish farms out of the oceans. We need fish farms out of the oceans. We need fish farms out of the ocean.
I would just like to take a moment to recognize this land and the water we're on today as Coast Salish. This includes the Musqueam, Stolo, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. That as a settler and conservationists, the work we do depends on us being allies, recognizing and supporting anti-colonial struggles. The nations like the Muskema Zelidanic have been leading this fight long before since we arrived. Thank you.
And now I would like to introduce our campaign leader for Operation Virus Hunter, Carolina Castro.
Yay!
Hello all. Thank you so much for being here for the launch of Sea Shepherd's Operation Virus Hunter 2. The RV Martin Sheen is our research vessel, and it is an honor for us to be here to sail with biologist Alexandra Morton to investigate the impact that salmon farms have on wild salmon populations in British Columbia, as well as also acknowledge the leadership of the First Nations and to work together to protect the wild salmon.
This campaign would not be happening if it wasn't for our fearless leader on this campaign, biologist Alexandra Morton. Alex.
Thank you.
More close.
Alex, come up to the mic.
Close the microphone.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize that we are on the territory of the Musqueam, the Stolo, Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh. I'm here because it's 2017 and salmon farms are still having catastrophic effect on our wild salmon, our whales. I'm a biologist. I came here 31 years ago to study whales, but the whales are doing so poorly they can't carry their calves full term due to the loss of salmon in the Fraser River. This is a major scientific paper that was published a few days ago. And the problem with salmon farms is that they amplify disease, pour it over the wild salmon at levels they just can't survive. And so I've tried many things. I am enormously grateful to Paul Watson and the Sea Shepherd for providing the ship so that we can go and look at every farm again this year. We made many discoveries last year about the herring, about the disease in the farms. But I'm primarily here to serve the First Nations, who are the ones who will correct this situation and allow the wild salmon to come back. So it's a great honor to be here today with Chief Willie Moon from the Zawadanic and aboard this ship.
This next man, you all know as Canadians, but we also know him all around the world. He wears many hats. He's an environmentalist, he's an author, he's a broadcaster, and he's been at the forefront of the environmental movement. And David Suzuki, please come on up. We've been waiting for you.
Thank you. Well, it's my honor to be here today to send Alexandra off with our best wishes for her big expedition. I'm third generation and proudly third generation Canadian, but I am in awe of the Indigenous people who have lived here for thousands of years. As you know, this is Coast Salish territory, the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish First Nations who lived here and cared for this land and the waters for thousands of years. And we better learn something pretty fast from them about what genuine sustainability is. My ancestors came to this land from Japan. So naturally, fish are important to me. I can't imagine being Japanese without a very close relationship with fish. And so the oceans, the birthplace of all life, the oceans have been very, very important to me. And I've watched it over the years with great alarm as I've witnessed with my eyes the oceans being degraded. And it's not just overfishing, it's not just habitat loss. The oceans are being impacted by the existential crisis of our time, which is climate change. And as you know, as we're producing more carbon dioxide than plants can absorb, that carbon dioxide builds up in the atmosphere, dissolves into the ocean as carbonic acid, and so the pH drops. We are acidifying the oceans. Now you might look at the numbers and think that's a tiny amount, but the reality is our blood, which has about the same pH as the oceans, if it changed in pH by the extent to which the oceans have now been changed, we'd be dead. Life evolved in a stable acid base solution, and tiny changes that we are now causing are having enormous impacts. And so we're adding insult to insult. Bottom dragging of nets is the dumbest way to get our food. It joins drift nets, these as really a very, very destructive way of fishing. But also it's we're adding to it with our conceit that we can use the oceans to farm animals. And we've got nothing against aquaculture, but we're saying if you're going to do it the right way, and don't do it at the cost of the oceans themselves. Salmon farming in British Columbia is crazy because for a number of reasons. One is, why the hell is it we have 5 species of salmon on the west coast? Why is it most of the salmon being grown in our net pens are Atlantic salmon that don't belong here? And I can tell you, Atlantic salmon are tough as nails. They're repeat spawners. They go out to sea, they come back, they spawn, they go back. Whereas ours are programmed to live out their lives and spawn once and die. They're very different kind of animal, and I have had direct experience with how different they are as survivors. So why bring an alien species into these waters? 2, they're carnivores. We don't grow tigers or lions on land for meat. Why are we growing fish that have to be fed fish to feed high-end customers? Doesn't make sense. Well, there's a solution to that. Everybody knows that my solution is feed them insects, and I can tell you all about that another time. But there are alternative sources that don't depend on fish. But finally, in open net pens, we're using the oceans as a garbage can. And we know darn well that this can't go on indefinitely. I have scuba dived under open net pens, and I can tell you there's nothing under there. I took a yardstick and shoved it into the feces and waste food up to my armpit, and I didn't touch bottom. It's like a biological desert under these net pens. Get them the hell out of the water, or at least surround the waters of the net pen so that we control and filter them. These are the solutions that are out there, and for some reason the Department of Fisheries and Oceans doesn't really give a shit about fisheries or oceans. They're worried about people that want to use the oceans and the fish. So we're not focused the right way. What Indigenous people tell us is the oceans are the source of life. And as long as the oceans are happy and healthy, then we will be able to live and flourish. But DFO and our government's focus seems to be the other way around, and focused on providing an income and all of that other stuff without paying attention to the health of the oceans. The oceans are a mess, and one of the ways that we're screwing it up is with open net pens, and that's got to stop.
Thank you very much for coming. With the clear support of scientific evidence, Operation Virus Hunter 2 will continue to address and expose the enormous health risks as well as the devastating environmental and ecological destruction directly and indirectly related to the farmed salmon industry. As I said earlier in welcoming you, you are the wings of the message. We are the messengers, and we can't really reach anyone without your carrying that message. So we're so grateful, one, for your coming here, and two, for your taking this message to where it must go. And it really can't go any higher than where it should go with the government, Prime Minister Trudeau, and the Canadian Fisheries Industry Minister Dominique LeBlanc. These two specifically need to become personally aware of this problem, and even if they don't take our word for it, or any of the speakers here today, or any of the scientists that have become involved in this measure and exposed what's going on, then they should listen to their own commission, the Cohen Commission, which recommended 17 different articles to alleviate this horrible environmental and ecological problem, and not a single one of them have been implemented. In fact, most of them remain unknown to the public. So our message today is to those two gentlemen in particular: please do what you are elected to do and what you are capable of doing, and save your own environment here in British Columbia. I've come here so many times for work, and I always appreciate the Canadian character. I've often said when I cross the line from my home country that I feel like I've left the land of lunatics, and never is that more apparent than present. But I'm not going to make this about that bunch south of here. I just want to again thank you so very much. I couldn't be prouder to have this vessel, because the RV behind the name of this vessel is not recreation vehicle, it is research vessel. And so for that reason, I could not be more honored to have my name carved in the bow. So my thanks to all of you again, and you're going to meet the captain and crew and ask any questions you like of any of us that have spoken, and any of our friends that have blessed us with their presence this afternoon. All right, thanks so very much.
Next up, we have the president of the Wild Salmon Defenders Alliance and the elder of the Squaw First Nation leader, Eddie Gardner.
First of all, I want to mention that it feels like a great honor to be in the presence of the ancestors of the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and the Squamish peoples. And it's a very high honor for me to travel here with all the wild salmon defenders from upriver to come and support this Operation Virus Hunter that is embarking on shining a bright light on the ugly truth that fish farms do harm wild salmon. They're malplaced on the migration routes of the Fraser River salmon. And I'm a Stalo. I'm from Squaw First Nation. And when I go up the river and visit all my friends, all the different nations along the river, too many of them are reporting about the numbers of pre-spawn deaths that are happening. They're finding too many farm salmon in their nets. And they're looking at the salmon, and some of those salmon have sores on them. So many of those salmons are discolored with yellow and green. And we're not crazy, we're not stupid people. We look and we talk with many people, and we know, we've come to realize that fish farms have a devastating impact wherever they are all around the world. And we witness right on the ground what is happening to our wild salmon. That stems, all those things that I mentioned, that stems from those fish farms, those open net pen fish farms, and they have to go. And we know that the federal government has said over and over again that what we want to do is make decisions based on science. Last year there was scientific evidence, hard scientific evidence that showed the harm that those fish farms are doing, not only to wild salmon, but to also the herring and the clam beds. And when we witnessed the Musqueam Zawadinok people issue an eviction notice to the fish farms in their territory, we stood up and we said, yes, we support them. We support them 100%. I am proud to be a member of the Squaw First Nation. Our chief and council have stepped forward and sent those messages to Dominique Leblanc and told him, that those fish farms have to go because they're threatening our Indigenous Aboriginal rights to a salmon fishery. And it would be a sad day indeed if those fish farms were to be the cause of the last salmon that runs up the river. We have our first salmon ceremonies every year. We don't want to have a last salmon ceremony. So it's a great honor to be here. It's a great honor to have Willie Moon be with us here today, and we're very honored and we're very proud of Martin Sheen, who has donated this beautiful research vessel to Sea Shepherd. We're very honored that Sea Shepherd is doing this work in collaboration with Dr. Alexandra Morton, marine biologist, whose credibility is very high. And so the Wild Salmon Defenders Alliance is presenting this check for $500 to support the Sea Shepherd in their effort to bring out the truth and wake up the federal and the provincial government about what they're doing to our wild salmon. And we have one message to John Horgan. He's the new premier of BC. We're asking John Horgan to step forward and stop signing those leases to the fish farms. Thank you for coming. We'll see you.
Thank you so much for your generosity. We have your back. We're here to support you. Our last speaker, definitely not our least speaker, is traditional Zawadanic leader, Willie Moon.
Before I say anything, I would like to recognize Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, for allowing us to be on their traditional land here. I'm very honored to be here today to speak to this voyage. I was a part of it last year when they came into our territory. And I was quite happy to hear they were coming back in again this year. And I know for the past 30 years, our nations have never signed any agreements with the fish farming industry or the governments to say they could come into our territory. For 30 years, we have said no to the industry. For 30 years, it has fallen on deaf ears. We have two new governments in, and we have asked a few times now for the Prime Minister to come and meet with my people to talk about how we're going to get rid of these fish farms out of our territory. And now that we have a new provincial government, I'm calling on John Horgan and his group to come to my community and to meet with our people and talk and plan on how these fish farms are going to be removed out of our territory. We have never signed an agreement with them, so they are trespassing into my territory, and I get very fed up with them when they come out and say, "Oh, you guys are coming in to trespass into our territory," and yet we have not given them that rights to that land or the waters. We still claim and hold on to that title that we've never given it up. It is unceded territory, and our people are going to keep moving forward to fight until we get these fish farms out of our territory. Like I said, it's been 30 years, but we have a younger generation coming up now, and they're ready to take the lead and start the fight with us. So, on behalf of my nation, I want to say to the RV Martin Sheen gang, you're welcome into our territory to do the research study. We look forward to visiting with you guys when you come up into our village.
And now we'd like to invite some questions. Does anyone have any questions for? Yes, sir.
Just to tell us how this research is going to go on, what the time frame is, what's going to be involved. Just a synopsis.
Alex, do you want to answer that?
We're going to be leaving here on Saturday and making our way.
Step forward.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, the Martin Sheen is going to be leaving the dock here on Saturday morning, and we're going to be following the migration route of the Fraser sockeye, looking in every single fish farm, testing the water for viruses, taking sediment samples, photographing the fish, because the industry maintains the fish are healthy. But last year what we found was massive numbers of them were finning on the surface. Their heads were stuck in the air bubbles trying to breathe. These are all signs of disease. And so there will be papers published from this, but also we are very aware that the public needs to be brought along on this trip too. So through the Sea Shepherd's website and my own, we will be, and on Facebook, we will be bringing people along with us.
Yes, you had a question.
Can we do one-on-one interviews?
Afterwards, you should come see me first. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I've got a question. Can you talk a little bit more about the mission statement and sort of what the goal is?
Mission statement and the goal. Carolina?
So Operation Virus Hunter is an effort of research to protect wild salmon. That's why we're taking biologist Alexandra Morton to conduct her research, because we believe that those farms, the pathogens that spill out of the farms, are affecting the wild salmon populations to the point where their decrease is a threat to the whole environment and the whole ecosystem here in this area. And also our mission is to be allies to the First Nation to protect the wild salmon. So that's our mission here.
What have you seen happen in your territory that you find very alarming, and especially if you're related to fish farms?
Well, I see the decline in our salmon, and I was just telling a young lady here that there's been no herring fishing in our territory for the past 30 years, and our herring population hasn't grown. It's remained the same. And last year we were out on this vessel and we were out on the fish farms and we saw herring on us net pens. So that's why I figure we're not getting why our herring ain't building like it should be. I mean, 30 years with no fishing, it should have been a big stock there.
How about birds and whales?
We see the odd whales, but not very many. Birds, very little. I mean, we do have the ducks out in the inlet and that, but other than that, the only time we really see like the seagulls in our territory is when the hurricane season.
And how do you equate that to fish farms being a negative influence?
Well, you know, if when the salmon leave our rivers, when they leave as smoked, a lot of times they get infected. We've seen them with sea lice on them, and we've seen them in the pens last year. You know, we saw some wild spawns in the fish pens. So I mean, that's just one fish farm. I mean, if we got 27, 29 fish farms in there, you know, it adds up.
You know, I mean, the reason I am still doing this is because it's 2017 and salmon farms are still being allowed to have catastrophic impact on our wild fish, therefore on whales and the whole environment, the forest, and everything. There really has been no progress with the federal government, shockingly. I mean, Trudeau gave his minister a mandate to use science to conserve wild fish, but he's not. He's just not doing that. In fact, I'm fighting the minister in court because he wants the fish farmers to be able to put fish into this ocean without testing them for Piscine reovirus, which is a highly contagious salmon blood virus. So I'm hoping that the federal government just doesn't know that the bureaucrats are kind of sealing this off and making me out to be a liar. But the federal government is doing nothing. They're obstructing my science. They are denying what I'm finding. But now we have this new provincial government. We got all the farms with the NDP, and they are not talking to me. That always worries me because I do know the most about this industry of anybody in British Columbia, just for the simple reason that I've made it my life. I'm really the only person that's made it her life, for 30 years to look at this thing. But they've got a green rudder on them, and so we don't know what that means. Andrew Weaver's a climate scientist, so he should understand the value of wild salmon. He is a scientist. He should understand the risk of allowing these viruses to replicate and pour out of these farms. I'm hopeful, and I continue to be hopeful for the federal Liberal government that they will perhaps just not want this to turn into a scandal that's going to stick to them. They still have the opportunity to try to figure out what's really going on, because their bureaucrats are obstructionary. They're not interested at all in protecting wild salmon from this. Not at all. One of the things I spend a lot of time doing is freedom of information searches. And so I get the emails between people in DFO talking about fish farms or disease or sea lice, and I've read thousands, tens of thousands of pages of these emails, and there has not been a single one who has said, what about the wild salmon in this? What are we doing about that? Or here's an idea of what we should be doing about it. It's all about media lines. It's all about making it look like they're doing something, or look like there's no problem, or look like I'm a fool. Well, I'm not a fool. I'm being published in virology journals, international journals. So my hope now is pinned on the First Nations, because you never hear a First Nation say, if it gets any worse, I'm leaving. They're tied to the land. They're tied to the fish. They're tied to everything that makes that land healthy and work. And most of the First Nations along this coast have signed deals with these companies. I don't know what these deals look like. They must be pretty sweet, because they, one after another, even nations that don't have farms, like the Comox band, are signing these agreements. But not the Musqueam Zawadanic, the 4 tribes of the Zawadanic. Zawadanic being Kinkum, Yukwanalis. And that is, among the leaders there is traditional leader Willie Moon, who came down today. These guys have guts. These guys put their body where their mouths are. These guys mean what they say. They're not easy to work with, but they are strong to
the ideals of protecting life. They understand that their children need a living world. And so I'm trying very hard to serve them, to have my science serve them. And every time Paul Watson gives me a boat like this in crew, I go to the Zawadinik and say, what do you need? What do you need us to do? And so that's where my hope lies, but there's really no point in just being hopeful. You can hope that what you're doing is going to work. Everybody has to engage, and that means writing to your members of parliament and your MLAs relentlessly, not just once. You need to tell the chefs where you eat, whether it's a sushi restaurant or fast food, you do not think farm salmon is good for this coast. You need to tell the people in the supermarkets. You need to send resources to people like myself, Eco-Justice and Sea Shepherd that are fighting this, because we're going up against huge corporations and entire governments. Everything costs money. You cannot just do this without some funds. And probably the most important thing is show up. When somebody puts on an event, puts on a protest or a demonstration or a march, we all know it's inconvenient. We all know we have things to do every day. But literally you showing up is the most important thing that can happen, because there's something about it that it affects politicians, it affects everybody. Because we are standing on a dying planet. We all know this. Might as well just come clean with it. And it's not a dress rehearsal. It's time to act now. And wild salmon feed the trees. They make the oxygen we breathe. They feed over 100 species. They are what keeps this whole province green. If we kill them off, it's like going up and pulling the electrical cords out of the side of your house. Your washing machine's not going to work. Your lights aren't going to come on. That's the same for British Columbia with wild salmon. And so, I went into the wilderness. I thought I could do this myself, but now it is all about allies and the strong. This is going to be won or lost in Musqueam-Zawadinik territory, because they understand the principles of life. And so it is my task to figure out how I can serve them, if at all, but to be there to try and help them push this through.